Hello, this is Rats with Team4545 League analyzing the game between H-Cube and Packer Fan. This was played in team event number 53 in the 5th round, and let's have a look. Oh, looks like I got a little lag. Hopefully it won't stay. Okay, what's it going to be? Oh, good. We haven't seen this one in a video that I can recall. 2 knights? Yep. Okay. For those that study chess, this was one of the old things that they did before my grandfather was born. They had this thing figured out, or supposedly they did. There's been a lot of theoretical improvements in the 2 knights defense, but safe to say that if you're going to play either side of this, you need to know it, okay? And that means knowing a lot of theory. And I don't know when this leaves book. That's for you guys who are going to play this to figure out and to study. But white plays a very enterprising gambit, and usually white will play knight g5 here, right? And then I have even seen people, they'll play the black side. It's bishop c5. It's a very, very tricky line. I think it's in that position. You just allow the knight fork, and black gets this great counterplay for the material sacrificed. Okay, let's just take a look. I don't know this line. I've seen it played. I've watched. I remember once when I first saw it. It's about 1974. The game next to me at a tournament I was playing, this line came up, and black just got this great game with it. Maybe I've messed it up. But I think the game finally ended up a hard-fought draw. But anyway, that's for you guys to study. I'm not supposed to show you everything. I'll show you what to look for. Check it out. If I didn't get the line right, sorry. I can't remember everything. I try. Anyway, d4. And like I say, I don't know when this leaves theory. But obviously, I think it does look familiar. I've seen this kind of stuff before. Now there's a tactic that white employs here, and I'm certain this is still book. It takes advantage of the pin to regain the piece. Okay, and then white takes here and has all sorts of ambitions of discovered checks, which black prevents. And that's an interesting move. It stops black from castling queenside. He might want to. Anyway. And now the game gets extremely tactical. White's got to be careful with his rook. It could get misplaced. White could play bishop d2 here and stop it all, but the rook comes up to e2, and it gets... there's some tricks here. And I'm not sure what the best line is, but... it's at some point in here, I'm sure the game leaves theory, because white gets a little advantage here, and bishop c4 just isn't right. It does trap the rook in here, but white has a tactic. Now let's take a look at this. How much time did black spend? He spent a good close to 4 minutes on the moves, 3.5 minutes. So maybe he just misanalyzed. I don't know what the alternatives are. Let's see. But if you're going to play a move like bishop c4, you have to say that the alternatives are worse. What would white do? Let's see. If you play bishop c5, white has b4. You could play bishop d6 and accept some doubled pawns, right? Or you could play bishop e7. Now, what can white do here? Does he have any tricks? Well, he can win his pawn back easily enough. Maybe black's trying to hold on to it. Now we can take with the knight or the queen. The queen is going to get tempoed. If we put the knight there, it's going to get pinned. So what's the best move? Maybe this. And then, like I say, it gets tempoed. And where does white want to put the queen? If you play queen c3, black will happily trade queens, and if he can get rid of the rooks and a knight, he's got a winning position. And I'll explain it again, because I don't know who's watching all the videos. But in my library, I think it's game number 159. I'm leaving it there. as Stoltz versus Cashton, The Hague, 1928. That was the chess Olympics. Cashton had the bishop versus the knight and proved it wins. And that game is theoretically important to this day. So have a look. So unless I missed something, this was a perfectly logical choice for black to go into. But anyway, he played bishop c4. Maybe this was the time to stop and take his time. But white plays this very nicely, and he shows the flaw in the or the fly in the ointment. Now we pick up the queen, and suddenly white has 2 pieces for the rook. Now that should be a decisive advantage for white. It should be. Of course, making it happen might be a different story altogether. But white starts to drift, unfortunately, and in a moment here, and you'll see. Okay, f6. Now here's where I said he starts to drift. He should play bishop f4 here. The point is that it attacks this pawn. How's black going to defend it? Okay, you can play rook c8 or you can play rook e7, right? Okay, let's try rook e7 for the sake of argument. Now, white's not ready to grab this guy yet, but he seems to have a good position here. He can play. Got to watch your back rank. Okay, there can be some tricks down here. Let's make sure. Okay, if you go into this line, you get mated, right? Is that mate? No, it's not quite. So let's see. We got to make sure we don't have any tricks here. But this should be fine for white. He'll break the pin by g3 and king g2. Does black have any way to mix things up? Okay, I'm not sure. Go attack a pawn, and you can just play king g2 or seal the file. Okay, let's play king g2, and I think it's better than bishop a3. Now we can win this pawn, but then white wins his back, and this should be a winning position for white. It should be. So bishop f4, I think, is the best move to play, and it just basically forces black into a little defensive posturing here, and white can take on d4 apparently. And so what if you lose the pawn on d5? Anyway, let's see what happened. Oops. Okay, comes back to d2. Now that holds on to the pawn on a5, but the problem is it's just the bishop really has no scope. It only had one square to it only has 1 or 2 good squares to go to, or and actually only has 1 good square to go to, f4, and that's where it could have gone. You've got this pawn has gone, or bishop has gone into defensive mode. Okay, so black now plays a little more aggressively. Now white cleans his back rank up. Now I'm not sure if h3 is the best move here. Let's consider. What white is doing is he's saying, well, eventually you're going to check me on the back rank. I want to make sure it's not mate, so I'll create h2 as a safe haven for my king. But in this position, wouldn't king f1 be a little better? The reason being that we get the king a little closer to the center instead of seeing him possibly going to h2 where he's a little out of play. Now, king f1 can have some drawbacks, but black needs doubled rooks to do that. And right now there are 3 defenders of e1 other than the king, so I can't see black getting away with that. And white still has to solve the problem of how to place this piece. So h3 is not quite right. How much time did he spend? He spent 4 minutes on it. Okay, anyway. Now you'll see a big difference. Now white comes back to f4, and now this rook is defending it. Black may have selected rook c8. Where would you rather have the black rook in this position? On d7 or c8? Well, it depends on which side you are, or if you're white or black. So you have to ask these questions of yourself. And now we have this problem piece. It's problem pawn again. How's white going to deal with that? Well, he's going to get tactical. So now white's been kind of fumbling. He's moved his bishop 3 of the last 4 moves. Okay, and he could have just moved it once and kept it there and had a reasonable game, but he didn't. So now white constructs a new tactical plan. He's going to try to win that pawn. Okay, and so he's drifted a little bit. Let's see how black reacts. Now, am I missing anything? What's wrong with just now that you've done this, taking it? Okay, what is black? Oh yeah, you can't. Oh yeah, you can. Okay, that has the tempo, right? You're on the rook, so if the knight, well, the knight is pinned, but I don't know. White shouldn't fear this. You can play b3, keep the knight out of c4. Okay, you can play. You have to watch out for c5 is coming. That's the problem. So you can't play b3. Okay, so white's gone around this little maneuvering to win that pawn, and yet he can't. Black has some tricks, and I won't verify all the tactical implications, but here white decides that he wants to make sure his rook is protected, so when eventually black does get that c5 move in, that he doesn't lose the piece. But then black just renews the pin, and I don't know, it seems like what white should consider now is bishop f4, but then this bishop is moving again, and so it's like clearly white has not coordinated his pieces well the last several moves. Okay, so what does white do? He gets aggressive, he attacks. Now, it looks good. It's attacking the pawn again, it's attacking the rook, but watch what happens. It's just amazing. There's this simple move that he overlooked that I should have made black to play and do the best he can. I'm sorry, but anyway, it looked like a reasonable move, but ouch! Suddenly, white's left with a lost game. So that one move just kind of threw it away. Okay, so he gets a rook with check, but there's another tempo. You know, white's just tempoed all over. There's wish and zigs to be had everywhere. You know, both sides are playing him. And before black recaptures, he stops and takes on f2, and now suddenly white is a pawn down, and he's going to lose his pawn on a5, it appears. So white's just gone from having 2 pieces to rook advantage and lost both the pieces back. He had plenty of time on his clock, and unfortunately he just didn't find the right moves, and he is outranked, so his opponent's a little better, but his opponent did find the moves when it counted. And anyway, knight and pawn ending, how do we evaluate these? Well, for the moment, white's only a pawn down, but it's hard to say how he keeps it. It's his move. But the simple rule of thumb is, in most cases, how do you assess a knight and pawn ending? Well, just take the knights off in your mind. Now, if this was a pure king and pawn ending, what happens? Well, it looks to me like black wins because he's got a kingside pawn majority, and no matter what white does, eventually black will create a pass pawn on the king side and use that to divert the white king's attention while the black king comes in and invades the enemy pawns. And white's only chance is to somehow set up some trick where he can do a pawn breakthrough and sneak a pawn by. But when you're going to lose that pawn on a5, it's even harder. What does white do here? You could play knight d4, so if knight a5, knight b5, and then you've got a fork. But let's see what he did. Yeah, he played a6. Figures that if he's lucky, black will double his pawns, but I think black just pushes by. So let's just take a look at knight d. Oops, you can't play knight d4. What am I thinking of? Yeah, I tell you, I can't see one movers for the life of me. Okay. Yeah. All right. a6, but I think black just pushes by. Well, he could have pushed by, but this is fine. But now white's down a second pawn, and the 3-on-2 majority didn't go away. And then black happily offers a knight trade, and white must decline. And now it's just a matter of getting those pawns rolling on the king side, and for white to try anything. Yeah. And just a matter of time. H4. He didn't have to play H4. It takes away some of the fluidity, but I guess he's going to play F5 and G4, going for the outside passer. And that's a fine move. Just hold on to everything. And now the black king is more active, and it's just a matter of time before something breaks here. And here's the critical point, because this allows white to trade knights. But what else does white do here? Let's consider it for a moment. G4 is coming. Okay, let's just look at the game the continuation and see. Okay, does white have to take? Well, pretty much. If he moves his king, he's going to lose the pawn on D5. So this is just dead one for black. So let's look at the alternative and see if it would have been worth it. Okay, what can white do here to try to hold on? I said the black winning strategy is to create an outside pass pawn and divert white's attention. Okay, but at least white's got the knights on the board. But let's just have a look. What can white do instead? He can play king F3. The problem with king F3, of course, is that knight D4 check just comes in and is a real stinker. Can win that pawn on B3. So can we remaneuver the knight? You know, we're kind of left with knight moves here. Keep the opposition, keep the black king at bay, but now the knight's farther out of the play, and now black's threatening to get that outside pass pawn and use his king to penetrate. Just the fact that the knights are on the board really doesn't matter. White to play, what can he do? And here's the knight can't lose the tempo, so you want to get the knight into play, keep the king out of D4. We could try that. You can go ahead and play H3 here, I'm sure, and be winning. Now somebody's going to have to run over there to watch the store. And if king F3, knight D4 is check. So what's that leave? If knight G3, then knight D4 seems to cause problems for B3. So really there was no viable alternative for white here. He's just got a lost game, and the rest just really doesn't need much discussion. Yeah, white resigned here, and it's obvious he's down 2 pawns and a king and pawn ending, and black can just bide his time here and wait for white to move. And as a matter of fact, white has to move now, and whichever way he moves his king, the black king enters with decisive effect. So you could try king E2 and then get the opposition back, but it doesn't stop the inevitable. You know, the outside pass pawn is going to frustrate white. What can white do? King E2, you're going to queen, I think. Well, you're not going to queen, but you're going to do exactly what I said. You're going to make the white king run to the one side of the board, and the black king just comes in and enters the position. And you know, everybody that watched this knows this was winning for black as soon as I went into the line. But it's worth repeating, and hopefully you learn a little bit about knight endings. And it was a good game. You know, the mistakes are going to happen at this level of chess. White got a winning game. Black hung on and found better moves at the right time. And at this level, you can't play perfectly. You can just try to figure out why you're making mistakes and correct them. And as I say in my other videos, when you correct them, you stop losing games because of the mistakes. It makes your rating go up, and then you reach you get pairings that will give you tougher opponents, and you can in turn learn from how they play. So that's the way to get better. Play better opponents. All right. I want to thank everybody for their time, and I look forward to making another video for you soon. Take care.